Hi, I'm one of the current admins for the Quilting with Grace Facebook page, and I've noticed more and more people are asking questions about the software from the Grace Company. It's called QCT. The current version is QCT6. I do want to say right off that you will find your best help at the Facebook page Quilter's Creative Touch. In it, you will find guides that you'll be able to choose stuff for the exact tier that you're using. That's very helpful. You have files, lots of files for help, and you're able to post things and ask questions. So if you've purchased the QCT software and you need help, please join this Facebook page. It's really great. But in the meantime, I want to just show you a few little tips for getting started with it and finding help when you're all by yourself and maybe you live way out in the country. So when you first turn on the software, you're going to get the page that shows the version you have. And if you look in the very top left corner, it has the exact version, because with each version, there'll be periodical updates. They do not cost anything. If tomorrow version 7 came out, that would be a free update. So once you purchase the software, the updates are free. And whatever tier that you have, which like I said, will show. This shows that I have QCT6 Pro with gold. But regardless of whatever tier you have, you can tap on Try Other Product Tiers, and then you see every tier that's offered. This just says QCT6, but it's the newest tier that was added, Edge to Edge. And all it does is edge to edge pantographs, and it is a fantastic place to start. Maybe you've bought Pro yesterday, but you just want to hurry up and get started. Then this is a great place to start. It's different from these three tiers, very different actually in a lot of ways, but it's great. You will get great results and it'll boost your ego pretty quick. So if you have QCT6 Plus, then you can hit start and it will open that tier for you. So whatever tier you have, you of course have that tier, but by tapping Try Other Product Tiers down here, you can tap start and use any tier lower than yours. If you have Plus and you're curious, what is that gold card people talk about? You can tap on start and be in demo mode. So that's really nice. You won't be able to quilt with it. You won't be able to save anything, but you'll be able to just kind of get a feel for what's in there. If you want a little on-screen tutorial, then you can tap on one of these. I'll just tap marking tool. And you get this little on-screen explanation. And sometimes there's more than one page. You just tap on the little blue arrow pointing, and it's going to talk you through what it is and some tips on using it. So close. So you see that I for these. So that's one way to learn a little bit about them. And then when you've gotten what you want, then close it. Since several people have commented on the Quilting with Grace page about Plus, I'm going to go ahead and start Plus. And now that's what version that we're in and using. Okay, how do you get help using it? Maybe you just bought it and you're like, help me, help me. Well, you tap on help. And at this point, I'm going to show you something that you've probably been told, oh, don't do that, don't do that. And that is the internet. Let me tap on that. That's the sound. Oh, I'm tapping on the wrong stuff. The internet. That's the little fan thing. So right now, it's live. You usually want it on airplane mode. Anytime you're quilting, have it on airplane mode. That keeps Microsoft from running any kind of random update. So you want to be in airplane mode. But with what I'm going to show you, I'm going to have the Wi-Fi turned on. So when you tap on that help, you'll see tutorials, help, videos, and tips. Now, tips is up to you. You can make a tip. Maybe you've learned something and you're like, I never want to forget this. You can make your own tip in there. But let's go back to tutorials. This screen looks a little busy. I find it easier down here to tap View Icons and you get a view list. So this makes it a lot easier to tell what kind of help is in there because you just read it. And then it has immediate access, which I could just tap. But if I tap this, then it has select and open. And I think that this makes it easier to know what you've selected and what you're tapping. So what if you have QCT6 Plus? You've just bought it. I'm going to let you know that non-nested is easier than nested. So if you just bought QCT6 Plus, tap on that non-nested and open. And it's going to open a PDF. And it's just going to walk you step by step. I don't remember. At the end, there's a user guide at the end of, yeah, there it is. It's a QCT6 Plus quick reference. And this tells you everything, not everything, but almost, of what is all this stuff? What in the world are all these things? How do you use them? And so this number correlates to that. Like what is all that 14 through 18? Good grief, that's a lot of stuff. And then you just come down here and it explains them and tells you. But it will make more sense if you've followed the tutorial, which will really help you out a lot. So I'm going to tap X there, and then we're back here. I'm going to go back in here. So for whatever you have and whatever you're wanting to learn, there is so much help in here, and that's how you would do it. So I changed the view list, and then I changed the access mode, and then selected and tapped open. So that's how I use that. Let's go to help. And I still have the same options here. And these are other things that will come up on your screen. Maybe what is repair pattern? I'll tap that and say open. And this is some instructions from the Grace Company. They've prepared this to talk you through. How do you use repair pattern? Here's your quick start guide. We'll X out of that. Let's go back into help. And here you have videos. And different people have created videos. Some of these are from the Grace Company. If it's 1 a.m. and you couldn't make yourself stop, and now you've had an unexpected shutdown, well, you can tap on unexpected shutdown video. It's from the Grace Company, open, and it's going to tell you what to do. You folks have
no idea what honey and cinnamon can do for...
And you have that ad to watch. So this is how you get your help. So I wanted to make sure you knew that was there for you, and some great information there. Okay, let's just say we want to start using Plus. Well, select and sew, and I'm not going to be teaching. I'm just going to show. Every time you open select and sew or pantograph, when you first turn on, it's going to make you set your safe area. So I don't want to shove my machine into that rail. I want to let it touch, and then let it come forward enough just so it's no longer touching. And I'm going to top left, and then I'm going to bring it over here and bring it up to the front. And you notice I'm not doing the quilt edge. I'm getting over here by the batting, and I'm staying in front of those. But the same thing, I'm pulling it so that I can feel my machine touch. And then I'm letting it go back just a little bit so that my machine is no longer touching that take-up rail. And this is a rolling rail frame, not a hoop. And I'm going to tap bottom right. So when you tap select and sew, you have to choose something to get in, you might say. This is your entry fee. Choose a block, choose a triangle. Just to do anything, I'm going to choose any old block to get in. And then you have to place it, and then you quilt it. So these choices that you see are block style placement choices, or triangle. I didn't choose a triangle, so that's why it looks weird. But so these are great choices. When you are in pantograph, you will see place as a single pattern, which if you have Plus, you can, because you're only able to design what fits between your two top rails. So this is one of your choices. When would it be good? If you're doing a border, that would be a nice time to come in and have these choices. very, very simple. A gray node is an unplaced node. If I wanted to place this I can't go back that far, but if I were placing this block, all I'm going to do is move my needle to where that top left corner should be, and same for all the corners. And I'm being very quick about this. And what's nice about 4-point is if I have stretch selected, it doesn't matter how wonky it is. And then if I want an equal border around it, the yellow lock is locked, and I can come in here and say, I want you to stay 1/8 inch away from the seam, and then you're going to quilt. But I'm not trying to do a tutorial. I just wanted you to be aware of these. And here's all your placement choices. So you have a variety of them that are good for when you need it. So we'll go back to that. Okay, so that's the select and sew. Now I want you to see pantograph. And remember, we're in plus now. So I'm going to tap pantograph. And I had already set the safe area because the select and sew made me set it, because as soon as you turn QCT on and start to use either select and sew or pantograph, it needs to know, hey, where am I safe to sew on? Where can I go and not be stitching over here, because you don't want it stitching over there in no man's land. So when you do that, the safe area defaults into total width and total height in pantograph. And whether you're using plus or pro, it does that. But there's a big difference with plus and pro here. So with the total width on a rolling rail frame, you see the safe area 48.88, and that's the same down here, 48.87. And then the height, 15.85. Well, down here it's 15.04. So what is that? So when you first bought and set up, you had, my phone's ringing. Sorry about that. So when you first are setting up, you'll tell it what style rail you have, what machine you have. And so mine is a 21X Elite. I have a 21-inch throat space, which means the recommended height is 95%. And why would you not get to have 100? Because as you continue quilting and quilt builds up here on this take-up rail, then when you started out and you were able to be here, well, now you're able to be back there. And same with this. You used to could be here. Well, now when you build up, you can't move quite so much. So that means your height is getting narrower. Your safe area height's getting narrower. Well, that means what you're going to be able to quilt is getting narrower. And when you get down to the bottom and you're quilting your last row, you don't want to have to change the size of your pattern. So for the majority of the time, that 95% is going to protect me from that. So I want that percent in there. So I wanted you to see and understand that. So I'm going to tap OK and go back in here. So that's the reason that 15.85 is 15.054 down here. If you say 15.85 times 95%, that's what you get. Okay, so this 48.9 effectively, that's the width of more of, you might say, your backing than it is your quilt top. But you want the measurement of your quilt top. So there's different ways to quilt things. Just to make this quick and easy, I'm just going to use the raw edge, but there's different ways to place. So don't think this is the only way. It's just an easy way for me to show you right now. And there's a ruler you can tap on. It defaults to the one with the slanted green. And I can go to this left edge and tap there and go over here and tap over here. That gives me my quilt width. I say apply measurement. And now that 48.88 is now 42.566. I'm just going to go ahead and change it to 42.6 because I don't want all those decimals. Now, the total height, so let's talk about that. What this means for the person with plus is that's the maximum height you should have, but you can reduce it because depending on what pattern you choose, you don't have to max it out to that total height. I could change that total height to be 10 inches if I wanted to. I just cannot go over that amount. Now, if you have Pro, your total height can be the entire height of your quilt. It could be 60 inches. So that's one of your differences. With Plus, you can't go over 2 rows. That's the max. Okay, so when you select a pattern, continuous line is what you want. Because if you have blocks tend to start in the center and end in the center. So you're going to have some real messy stitching trying to turn it into a continuous line pattern. So tap on continuous line. Okay, I want you to notice something. This curl circle, a lot of people go for it. And it's a wonderful way to start. So to make it make sense, I just want to show you something really quick. We're going to pick the duck just because it's obvious and easy. Okay, how many should there be? You could eyeball it and start tapping plus, or go down here to this bottom row and just start tapping on the number until they're either almost touching or a little overlapping. So now it looks good. Well, now tap that top. Okay, so this second choice sometimes lets them separate. I don't like using that third choice. So the top one, you don't see any what we call wrapping on the ends, and then the second one allows it. This is unique because you don't see it, but you're fixing to. See this word stagger? That means when you want every other row to start different from the other rows. So if I tap alternate, then it in effect, it selects this row and is dark, and I can tap that word stagger, and now it staggers the pattern by half a width. So that looks real cute. I can tap all, and now they're both selected. You want to be real careful what's selected in here, because that's what's going to have the effect. But if you need to tap the blue arrow back, you can. Okay, but I wanted to show you something. So you see how that word stagger worked. Okay, so let's do the X and reselect the pattern. This one, open. And then we're going to do 2 rows. We're going to come down here and we're going to add, and we'll just select that, and we'll come up here, and that second one. Okay, so I would like to stagger this. I just think it'd look cuter stagger. What happens if I tap the word stagger? Look. Nothing. You're like, well, that really didn't change. And that's because for a single pattern, you saw 2 of these that look just alike. So that's why it's looking different. But you still want to stagger it. So now you can tap on move. These things right here, and if you look at that quick reference, you'll see that when you tap on the different things, you get different choices. So we want to move. And then this step size, you have all these choices of how much, how fast. Medium is obviously medium, but when you get ready to fine tune, then change it to small and tiny. But now I can tap on this, and you see both rows move. So I'm going to do that. I want that second row highlighted because I only want the change to be on it. I'm going to tap there until I think it's nicely staggered. And then again, if I think I went a little too far, now I can do tiny and do it a little better. So now I'm going to say all, and now it's nicely staggered, okay? So now we've got something that we can quilt that's going to fit between our top rails. So now I have choices. I can place as a single pattern, but that would give me those block choices that we have, which if all I was going to do was 1 row in a border, that would be great. I could place the 1 row at, like if I was going to do a little sashing here, then that 4 point in place as a single pattern would be great. But if I'm doing a quilt, then I'm going to keep on going. So instead of doing place as a single pattern, in this case, I want to sew in zones. And it wants me to save. We're going to say no for now. If you make changes in Zone Manager, it's going to save those changes, but that's more detail than I want to show. I just wanted to keep things really low level. And you have settings in here, which you can say, you can pick your sewing speed, whether you want a micro stitch or back and forth, how many of those stitches do you want. I don't like the automatic bob and pull. I keep it turned off. And then you can minus plus or tap on the number to get a keypad to change how many stitches per inch. Something like this, I'd probably do 10. So then you say, okay, and then there's something else you want to check, and that's Zone Manager. And you want to check, what is that width and height? Is it the right width? My rolling rail is 100. Yes, I have a 21 inch, it's 95, so we're good. And then you have a choice, and how do you want to place it? There's a center point placement where you just are using the center. And that one can be a little more challenging because as you quilt and different designs pull things in tighter or looser. So that one, I think it's easy because it's just 1 point, but it's harder. And then you have 4 point. So you're going to be placing A and B. You can place C and D if you want, but I don't recommend it until you're doing between borders and you get to the bottom. If you're in plus, this is grayed out, saying as you do a zone, which side do you want to start on? And then you have these sewing directions. And so the first one, it's going to sew a row, and then you're going to have to tie off and start the second row over here on the left. It's saying every row starts on the left. So if I were to select that and say, okay, you'd see a blue line. So some people say, where does that blue line come from? It comes from that. And then the next one is, and this is great if you're sewing, say, between borders, to stitch across, do a jump stitch down, and then stitch back. And then you have this third one that says continuous. Sew here, stitch down on the edge, stitch back across. So those are your choices. Okay, so I want to show you something, though, because this is something else at heart, and I'm going to say no. So when you place, then you're going to go up here to, if you've got a placement spot from before, or you're just starting out in the top left corner, and they want you to mark that spot, and I'm out of my safe area, so I need to move it up. I was just grabbing that little point. Okay, so anytime you see that, and in fact, let me do that again, because some people, when you see this red line, that is your safe area. That was where, when we turned on and we moved our machine up there and moved our machine down there, it created this great big rectangle, and that's meant for us to sew within. So when we created this design, that's called a zone, and our zone needs to drop within the safe area. That's why we needed a smaller amount. We needed the amount that matched our quilt top, not our backing. So when you see the pink, look for where does this green line, which represents your zone, where is it intersecting with that red line? Because right now it means that in this case, I just didn't have because I already have something loaded and I'm not really quilting it. It just means I needed for my needle to be back further. So if this was truly my placement spot for what I was doing, I need to advance my quilt a little further, because when I set it here, I see that intersection. So that means my quilt needs to go up. If the intersection were over on the right side or the left side, again, that means you didn't give yourself very much margin, and it's just letting you know what needs to happen. Do you need a bigger safe area? Did you set your safe area based on the quilt top instead of the backing? Different things can cause that. And so something else with plus that's unique is when, good grief. There we go. Is when you stitch this out, because you would, once you get it placed right, you're going to say pull bobbin and sew, and then you're going to be able to get your A and B placement marks for when you stitch your next row. So this design, the lowest stitch of this row is even with the highest stitch of this row. So when QCT gives you your placement marks, and here, just to be clear, I'm talking plus only, not pro, I'm talking plus, it's going to give you placement spots that are level with the lowest stitch. Okay, what if, and I'm going to just grab something real quick, what if you had a design that that was like, what if you had a design like this, where the rows nest up into each other? It's still going to give you a placement spot down here, which that's not going to be good, because then you're going to have these gaps. So how do you handle that? Then your placement spot, so regardless what pattern you choose, your placement spot should always be level with, when this next row stitches, where is the highest stitch going to hit? Always know that. Where of the next row yet to come, you haven't stitched it yet, but where do you want, when it does stitch, where do you want that highest stitch to hit? So in plus, because you're only limited to 2 rows, it's always going to give you a placement spot level with that lowest stitch. So if this were this pattern instead of this one, then you would need to adjust up so the highest stitch would hit up where you want it to hit. So you'll do that a few times and you'll get used to it, and you'll get very fast. Don't be scared of that. So I hope I've taken a little bit of the mystery out. There's so much to learn. You have stuff in your toolbox that's very helpful. And then you have a repair pattern, which if your bobbin runs out, your thread breaks, whatever, you have a lot of great tools to use. So I'm just going to real quick show the plugins. You have a thing called marking tool. This is in all the tiers. If you wanted to know, where's my left edge at, then you could say add, and you'll see a little brown dot, and then you could bring it down to maybe track along. Maybe it's not as straight as you think it is, and now you're able to tell how's my pattern gonna stitch in reference to where my quilt top really is. You can use this when you're in Select and Sew with blocks. In fact, I highly recommend it there. And if you need to say do the other side, you say add marking, and you could say right or say to, whatever. And now you can go over to the other side. And I'm just going to go here just for ease. But you can make all the lines you want. And when you were in Select and Sew, you even have a choice that you could quilt those lines out if you wanted. So many fun tools. And then if I say, well, I don't want those there, I can say remove all, or over here, whatever's selected, I could say remove all. That removes everything I did. But that's just a nice way to see, especially when you're new, where's what I'm going to stitch, where's it really going to hit on my quilt. So that's a way to find out, because when you're in pantograph, none of those marks stitch. And they also don't affect any of the size of your pattern or anything about it. It's just a line showing on the screen, so you can see how is your design going to stitch out compared to where those lines are. I'll say, okay. So if you have any questions about QCT, I love the software. The first time I sat down to play Monopoly, did I think it was easy? No. I thought, I don't even know if I'm going to like this game. There's so much to learn. But now, years later, I can sit down and play it, and you don't even nobody has to get out the rules and read them to me. So once you get past the rules, whether it's QCT or a game, whatever, you didn't know everything about a car when you first sat down to drive it. So give yourself time to learn a few things, and then you'll love it. And if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer and help you out. Thanks for watching.